So now, I mean, having heard from everyone's point, we can now move on to a discussion on if you have something to say for what some other speaker has already mentioned. In general, I mean, we have been discussing all the legal implications so far. So if any of you has steps that can be taken or suggestions to move closer to the ultimate subject, to the ultimate goal of trying Israeli officials for the crime of genocide, or trying settlers even, because as there is a genocide unrolling in Gaza, there's also crimes against humanity and war crimes happening as we speak in the West Bank as well. So the floor is yours. I think Ms. Lamis has something to add, had something to add when she was still talking. So if you want to, Lamis, can you hear us?
Yes, sorry, I would have liked to hear more from others, but maybe I'll take this moment. Rami, you said you're based in France and you've coordinated with Gilles David. Gilles was at this meeting, we couldn't get a hold of an invite. It was a short meeting, but I actually want to continue a little bit from where Joe left off. You know, Joe, a colleague of mine is the special prosecutor, one of the special prosecutors on the Rwanda tribunals. And you know what? There hasn't been a single prosecution to date. In fact, many of the intended defendants have died before they will ever see a trial happen. I think that the road, look, at this meeting, and I'm speaking to the general public, but especially to the attorneys, the practicing attorneys here, at this meeting, which I think is quite an epic and inshallah historic in terms of what it will produce with your participation, especially those in this field. Number one, we had to make the admission that what's been happening in the legal sector, because we don't have a centrally represented, clear, number one, political voice and leadership on Palestine. Number two, the role and voice of Palestinians in general. And so one of the most critical things that we did at this convening is to say that all of this work needs to be coordinated, discursively brought into the legal domain, Palestinian self-determination and the demands of popular Palestinian democratic will, which is in whatever formulation moving forward we have it, is a demand for liberation, which interpreted into legal or political language, what does liberation means, right? Justice, accountability, and dismantlement of all Zionist supremacist institutions of violence, whether that's cultural violence, war crimes, etc. Return, reparations, and restitution. Right. So number one, ensuring that there isn't a schizophrenic legal narrative or discourse that's being, proliferated everywhere, but there is, even if it comes in the form of dicta, there is the framing of the Palestinian issue in this way, number one. Number two, is this the marriage of the international world, this recalcitrant, lazy, politicized exception and really hostage system with the private system, which Rami has raised. This is our greatest area of interest, actually, and where we are sure we can probably see prosecutions, if not in the criminal, at least in the civil sense, but also in the financial sector. People underestimate the financial and the regulatory sector, which is why I'm saying we need to look at this genocide in the same framework and to use the framework of terrorism, to use the genocide as a framework for then going for all those layers of society that have actively participated in mobilizing, aiding, abetting genocide in Palestine, meaning also in the civil sector of Western society. As an attorney who practices in these sorts of fields and disciplines, I guarantee you we're going to see more. Looking at Interpol, but also moving outside of the concept that it's only in these Western countries that we have avenues and forums. That is not true, right? We are seeing the rise of the global South and of the East. And I have to tell you, we've begun doing the jurisdictional surveys. We are quite hopeful. And in this, I'm adding the media. And so through this coordination, you know, one of the heaviest things, and I'm making this more of an organization, through this coordination, we have, Rami, I can't imagine how much you have, Dan, as you as well. One of the most difficult parts is the fact statements and the evidence gathering, which the human rights lawyers have really been at the forefront of. And what we're saying is feed this into the private sector, multinational and even regional legal operations that are being launched and will be launched at a more forceful scale, number one. Let us coordinate in a way that we have this legal incrementalism. For example, if you're in France and I'm in America and we've got cases, we can cross share our goals for discovery, right? For example, and this becomes something tremendous. Get these incremental judgments in place. I think it's very important to delegitimize Israeli society, Zionist society that has allowed this to happen. One thing we don't talk about is how Oslo has facilitated the legitimization of obscenely illegal war criminal structures built by the Zionist entity. Their judicial system really needs to be addressed and named for what it is. And this has to happen in the legal domain, right? Yes. These are not prisons. So I'm sorry. So the coordination and this understanding of our power outside the reliance on the international systems, which are an administrative nightmare before they're a political nightmare, right? I think is critical. And so in all of this is to say all the people here are invited. Many of your colleagues have committed. This is an alliance of coalitions which want to come up with a clear or well-articulated, well-coordinated, permanent coordination of this work, which we are certain is going to create a more powerful legal intervention for Palestine and a preemptive one as well. And there's more to share. And I look forward to hearing from you if somebody will connect us. And I thank you all for your work and for having us.
Yes, thank you. It's very interesting how you broke down the crime of genocide itself and how every part of it should be actually persecuted, be it terrorism, etc. And also the idea of coordinating and making an alliance so that all lawyers and can have actually access to proof, so that everyone can move together. So, Mr. Dan. What is your say on this?
Well, first of all, I like the ideas that have been expressed here. I mean, I still have some hope in going to the ICJ. Of course, it would require only one state to do that. Yeah. And I would think there are some countries that we could prevail upon to do that. I would think Iran would be interested. Again, Colombia, which has been maybe one of the most outspoken against the genocide there, possibly Nicaragua or Cuba.
Malaysia and South Africa are actively considering, and there's been a lot of discussion.
Yeah, and just to add then, you know, I think a few of us might already be in discussion with government. Certainly our team is, and we're happy to bring others in discussion and to expand. So I don't want to cut you off, but yes, 100%. And we're here to help, you know, anybody who wants to do this work, anybody who is doing this work, and those who want to come into this work.
Great. Yeah, so that's my thought, that I think that from an international law perspective, at least that makes sense, and at least makes sense to really try. So that's it. And, you know, we do, but I also like this idea of sharing information with lawyers. As I mentioned, there is this domestic lawsuit in the United States against Joe Biden. It's in the Ninth Circuit, which is a more kind of progressive circuit in the United States out west in California. Alleging aiding and abetting with genocide. And again, I think that has some real teeth because the U.S. is bound by the Genocide Convention. And again, I think, I don't know if people have seen the pleadings, but they're very, very compelling. Mm. And I think there could be some avenue there as well.
Yes. So other than the circuit of countries, obviously, there's also the local circus and, the local circuit. and what local communities can do as well. As Mr. Rami actually mentioned, this is a very important point. Although now we're still dealing with, people are still hurting, people are still dying as we speak, but still people outside can also do something and can move towards like bringing justice to the victims of Gaza.
If I may, well, there's a lot of difficulties we are working on. I would definitely love what Mr. Lamy said and others, that we can start coordinating. We are part of a bigger alliance in France today with a Palestinian core in it, that we have a legal arm with many pro bono lawyers that are who are willing to support local cases, but also looking into evidence gathering. We have a lot of media evidence that can be investigated regarding genocide in Palestine, but very little gathering of evidence on the ground. We are putting on a team today to try to work in the ground in Gaza in documenting not only testimonies, but also samples, forensic in special sectors. One of it that will support any ICJ future, but would also support possible local cases. Today in France, we have 150 survivors of genocide Palestinians from Gaza who arrived to France, a lot of them with a French nationality, and a lot of them have been subject to genocide. Their families, their belongings, and their forced displacement. So I think we have a major possible entry into French courts. We need to amplify that with the evidence gathering, but also with a stronger mapping of the chain of command, which armed group of the Israeli terrorist army were in which area at what time, so you can exactly locate the right officers with the chain of command that leads up to. That's important for any court case. We're working on issues like that. We are also in contact with few countries, some of the ones you have mentioned that are interested in taking it to the ICJ, but there's others who yet do not want to declare themselves, who we're talking to. That's also a possibility. Again, my problem was not finding enough countries to take it to the ICJ. I think it's the will, it's the intimidation of the US government and Israel that disallow international accountability in the right way. I'm going to concentrate personally on local levels. I will concentrate on crimes in many different fields. For example, in France today, we're looking at possible 200 cases of people who came on French TV saying things that would be considered inciting genocide, not only the government, but also journalists, members of parliament, and normal people in many different ways. I think we need accountability on every level, from the mercenaries that have been shipped there to the people who incited genocide on TV to the actual genocide in Palestine, locally and internationally. And I'm very happy to coordinate with anybody who's doing the same work. We can do much better work together.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tappenberg, yes.
Yeah. Can I also come in on the and I completely underscore Lamy's call for effective coordination, and the previous speaker was also referring to that. I mean, this is critical, and important elements of it are already in place, and we at ARDD in Jordan have been advocating also for the establishment of a legal activism working group, a working group of attorneys both in national jurisdictions, partnered with international legal experts who can coordinate their work. And normally we don't like to sort of copycat and pick on each other's work, But in this case, as I think Lamis also mentioned, you can copy each other's arguments and use evidence and statements that have been produced for one case. I mean, take the case for the CCR that was mentioned. I mean, Katie Gallagher and others have said, everybody is welcome to use our arguments, to use our evidence, whether it's in national jurisdictions or for international procedures, run with it. And
Yes.
so that's very critical. There is your speaker Shahed from Al-Haq unfortunately had to leave. I think you mentioned Al-Haq has set up, I think a week after the start of the war, a genocide working group with a signal group and about 50 or 60 members so far from all over the world that is exchanging and brainstorming collectively and exchanging information and legal arguments on sort of the use of genocide, both in the pressure on the ICC, in the lobbying with states vis-a-vis the ICJ, the under the Genocide Convention, as well as the cases in national courts. Gilles Devers is part of the group, and so are others. So anybody who is interested in that working group, please contact Susan Power of Al-Haq in Ramallah, and I'm sure she can add you. We also created a working group on forced displacement and ethnic cleansing, sort of working along similar lines. Exchanging information, organizing sort of webinars and events to work with people who are working on ethnic cleansing, and then Lawful Palestine is a coalition of young Palestinian lawyers, both in the Middle East and in North America and in Europe and beyond. They are in the process of, as part of their legal networking, of setting up this sort of legal action working group, including also with people focusing on and exchanging information on universal jurisdiction, linking to human rights organizations that have used universal jurisdiction in sort of other conflict situations. So legal networking is of critical importance under the current circumstances, and I can only encourage it, and if anybody needs information, so Al-Haq in Ramallah, Al-Quds University, the Community Action Center of Al-Quds University, Munir Nusseibeh, he's coordinating the work on forced displacement. Isan Adel and Hassan, what's his name, of Lawful Palestine. And you can also contact me at ARDD. We do a lot of work on sort of the networking in the legal field, with both working towards justice and accountability with respect to Palestine.
Actually, everyone's contact information is available if you want to connect, and also Ms. Lamis Siddiq actually shared her contact information, phone number, and email.
Yeah, please feel free to do a post webinar email so that we all have each other's emails and connections, so that we can link you to the different existing networks and involve you.
Yes, that will be a first step in the yes.
May I?
Sure.
Okay. So look, I've done this multinational work in several sectors. I've also done, national security / terrorism / sanctions in several sectors in several countries. And I've done a lot of anti-Zionist IHRA work. And, to your point, Lex and Rami, the Zionists have a very formulaic process. They take all of these complaints and the arguments and they prepare them, and then they ship them out to armies of lawyers in every country who are then giving a very formulaic way of launching and implementing these pro-Zionist, Israeli protective, genocidal legal arguments, legal initiatives, legislation, quasi-legislation in the form of resolutions. And unfortunately, when I began my opening statement we opened up the Geneva meeting, I said, look, it's a wonderful thing that lawyers have big egos, because you need to have that big ego, especially if you're a litigator, to know how to take up space and represent and do a good job for your clients. But this is a detriment when we're talking about work that is supposed to be for the purpose of Palestinian self-determination, justice, equality, what we call liberation. That this prioritizing of the self in terms of having a proprietary perspective, right? And of course, balancing the needs for confidentiality. Okay, but we're attorneys, we can have attorney privileged communications, right? But this flow, this sharing of resources is incredibly important. There's no need. We're already under-resourced. We don't, and this is the work of governments, right? The US dispatched for 30 days in almost every ministry, any government that was looking at, in a local court, was looking at a judge potentially looking at a complaint around domestic laws, right? The US government alone, aside from the Israeli army of attorneys that operate, we don't have that. What we have is each other. And we are perfectly capable of coordinating and, yes, copy pasting, and we should be, to save those resources. So instead of beginning things from scratch on so many levels, we have some of the formula, we tailor it. One of my colleagues, who was the drafter of the Rohingya complaint, she said, here's the memo, let's begin tailoring it, right? So this coordination, I really can't underscore. Also to understand that ultimately all of this work should be the property of the Palestinian national body. Right? We're not an abstraction. We're not just individual clients. We are a people. The Palestinian refugees, cases around refugees and return need to come back to the fore and reprioritized in our work as well, right? We don't need to resettle Palestinians in Gaza. We need to help them return. So I'm really excited that everybody is on the same page. I think that with some repivoting and sharing of your work, Lex, I think you said in Jordan, I think our next meeting might be in Jordan, and I can keep everybody posted. Those who can't join in person can join by Zoom. And we've actually also begun working with attorneys in Jordan to start exploring the domestic sector, the regulatory administrative sector of law. And we're also very much interested in legislating as well, in helping implement legislation, no matter where it happens. But this sort of incrementalism and coordination, we believe, is quite poised, with the cases that both of you have raised, Rami and Lex, quite powerfully poised to make a historic change, at bringing all of the political into the legal domain. Very important work.
Yes, thank you very much, Lamis. So let's take a last word from everyone. Of course, it's good to mention that, again, to remind how Lamis just said, that the network must be kept, and everyone can, of course, refer to the organization to get any contact information they need. So let's get a last word from each one of you, and starting with Dr. Filiz Der. Do you have any comments at the end of this session? We can't hear you. Yes.
I think because of veto right, ICJ is not solution, because taking measure by the United Nations Security Council, US before resolution is not useful, and we are not have time. Every day people dying, women, children. What can we do? I think we can apply ICC and give evidence for this. International Criminal Court use OTP link, OTP link, and we can say people to send videos for evidence to OTP link, and we can say people this. And moral is important, and to remind people, civilians in Palestine, their right and their right of defense, and we can give moral. In Republic of Turkey, we have an organization for countering disinformation because of fake videos, and we are working here and countering fake videos about crimes. We can do that. I think because of measures taken United Nations Security Councils, the veto is a big problem, and after ICJ, same difficulty, because of that, not because of people's rights. We can support ICC. Because of that, we can take evidence and deal with disinformation.
Sophia, your mic is off.
Yes, thank you, Filiz, for your input. So as we're closing the discussion, so if anyone has anything to add, they're welcome.
Right, we had these discussions, and it was really a wide and broad representation. Even some organizations that historically debated with each other about which was the best tactic. And our position was all tactics, whether you're boycotting the ICC and want to get Karim Khan deposed or whatever it is, or removed, or you need to maintain those good relations. I think it's important that all tactics are used in coordination and in empowering each other. I think, this is the most effective. People, I think, don't measure as much the impact that their work has on the Palestinian people en masse and the struggle and the cause. Again, I don't want to reduce it to egos. There are bigger political systems and initiatives at play beyond us and our personalities. And I think it's important that we're open to all people who are working on all arenas, whether we're hopeful and optimistic or have faith and trust in them or not, and to strengthen each other's work, whether we believe it's the best and only route or not. So yes, absolutely. Some arenas are less powerful than others, less effective than others, but work on all that we have together, inshallah.
Yes. So Professor Kovalik, do you have a last word, last comment?
Just that I welcome working with everyone on this call for the common cause of saving Palestine and Gaza. On a more kind of not as grand scale, I wonder if there's a way to have an international delegation of lawyers to go to Gaza. There have been some international delegations there, not that many. I think that could serve a useful purpose. I think having as many witnesses there as possible is important, and I'm just throwing that out as an idea.
There's no access at the moment. There's no access for foreigners, with very, very few exceptions of sort of the head of a handful of international staff of UNRWA and the head of the ICRC who got in. There are no foreign journalists in Gaza. I mean, CNN got in for a one-off 2-hour visit to Rafah, to the south of Gaza. There are zero foreign journalists. There are no aid workers. There's nobody. It's all happening, especially in the north of Gaza and the center of Gaza, without any international witness presence.
But
Just
hopefully,
shocking.
if the UNSC vote advances, maybe if there's a ceasefire or at least a pause, some.
Still very much to be seen what Israel will do then, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Well, maybe worth at least trying to at least make a request, even if it's denied, which is maybe worth doing. And again, maybe that could be answered if there is a pause. So I just throw that out, but I know there are very important logistical obstacles to that. But in any case, I'm available. I'm willing to help in any way possible on this cause. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Shah.
I mean, thank you all for your eagerness. I think I'm an activist personally. I'm not a lawyer, and I believe in mobilizing people, and I believe in the full liberation of my country. And I think the massacre, the genocide ended whatever form of recognition or legitimacy Israel ever had. I never recognized, but I think whatever they had is ended. I think we need to think from a different perspective on how to end this Zionist colonialism in Palestine. And definitely rephrasing our legal terminology is important. Looking at it in that sense is very important. But I think it's a war that is going to be made by people, and people, not only Palestinians, but people around the world who's recognizing the danger of this continuous assault on humanity, this continuous assault on a rule-based world. And I think we should act accordingly. I would love to coordinate with everybody based on that. And I think there's a lot to exchange that would save time, effort, and resources that are scarce.
Oh, sorry, I thought my mic was off. So when I was saying yes, you could hear me, but well, very well done. So our goal tentatively is to have a file sharing, co-training, whatever meeting, end of February, early March, ideally in person, right before Ramadan. Ideally also in Amman, we expect, maybe for a day and a half. And if people want to stay longer and continue to work together, we'll have filed some cases by then. I think, we'll have some confidentiality papers in place to protect the work and the clients and maybe some sensitive contacts. But we are very anxious and excited to work with, to share with, and to learn from all the attorneys who are doing this work. Dan, to your point, one thing that we are very insistent upon is the empowerment and prioritizing of the Palestinian people, not just the Palestinian NGOs and not just the legal world, in their role in exacting accountability. This is something that has to be, I have a client who lost 61 members and he says, all I want to do is learn international law. And my position is, this is all yours. Anything we know should be yours, and you have an active role in this. And I think it's important to prioritize Palestinian attorneys on the ground in Palestine as being a legitimate, credible source and active part and leaders of this. I mean, this goes back to the three-pronged Israeli Zionist, Western Zionist war on us, which is the hyper-privileging of non-Palestinian, but really Zionist institutions and NGOs, even ones that we consider conflictual allies, the supremacy of trauma, which decreases the credibility of Palestinian testimonies and trauma, and then the criminalization, dehumanization, and marginalization of Palestinians. And by bringing Palestinians back to the center of this work, you really have a critical role to play in reversing this dehumanization, delegitimization of the Palestinian narrative and the Palestinian witness testimony. So truly, I support this and hope that we can balance it with really prioritizing Palestinian voices inside Palestine as well and their testimonies.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, do reach out, Lamis, as I'm based in Europe, but ARDD is based in Amman, employs over 40 lawyers, and their legal aid program is sort of one of the largest in the Near East. So we can definitely partner with you on this initiative.
Actually, Mr. Teckenberg, you can share now your contact information.
I copied it. I got it and I copied it. I saved it. It's already done, Lex.
Same for you,
please
Mr.
reach
Cavalli.
out.
Yeah.
We're also in contact with a lot of other lawyers in Jordan and in Palestine. So please reach out, and we're happy to exchange. And I think you did I understand correctly that you have been in touch with Law for Palestine as well, with Issam Adel?
Yeah, so I'm familiar with them. They're not actually practicing, at least not in the US. They issue statements, but there isn't any actual practice of law.
No, there's no practice, but there's a lot of networking. They're very well. Yeah, they're doing great work in networking. You know, that's their strength.
Well, very good.
Wonderful.
Yes, so I'll pursue that more with Hiba. Hiba is our contact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And thank you very much again for the opportunity. And please reach out. If we can be of support. One final idea that people have mentioned and that was not mentioned today is the idea for a people's tribunal in situations where the official systems don't work and are not likely to bring justice. A people's tribunal organized by either one or a coalition of organization, and with very prominent legal and other experts as sort of the judges, can have tremendous public impact in advancing the discourse. It was used in Vietnam, in the Vietnam War, and in a number of other instances since then. And it's definitely also a model that is worth sort of exploring further.
Yeah. Thank you all for this constructive conversation, and thank you all for the work you're doing on the ground, and hopefully you'll keep the conversation going until something concrete comes out of it.